Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. If you need additional CE credits or maybe a PD rating, or you're interested in updated workers' compensation news via our B&B blog, do visit our website at bradfordbarthel.com. It has all of these value-added services and more right at your fingertips. Timothy Mousock is leading today's webinar on the award, Settlement is Approved, What Do I Do? We have a few B&B attorneys and our entire rating department joining us today. We'd like to start off with some introductions. Tia, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Tammy. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you giving us your time. You've got a fantastic presentation here with Timothy Mousock. No matter how many times I see this presentation, I always learn something. So hope you guys enjoy it. By way of my introduction, I am the managing partner for client relations with Bradford Barthel, and I'm very proud of my team of marketing directors, which includes Tammy Welty here. She does a fantastic job. I'm down in the Woodland Hills office, but as most of you know, we are all remote and we can be reached anytime, cell phones, emails. Feel free to call us, text us. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm very impressed by how many people said hi and hello so quickly on the question section. So thank you for being interactive with us. Thank you for giving us feedback. We do appreciate your feedback. And with that, I'm gonna hand it back to Tammy.
Okay, Susan.
Hey there, I'm Susan Colias. I've been at Bradford and Barthel for 10.5 years. Most of that time spent doing the liens, so litigating liens, that kind of thing. I joined the rating department in 2018, and other than that, I have 40 some years experience in workers' comp. And working remotely has its benefits. When we first started working remotely in March 2020, I noticed a little white fledgling bird by our bird feeder. Had no clue what it was. Never seen a pure white bird around here before. Turns out it's called the leucistic scrub jay. The scrub jay, blue jay, that has lost all its coloring. It's a genetic mutation. Anyways, welcome everybody.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, Kenneth.
Okay, thank you, everyone. My name is Kenny Tilbert. I'm also a rater here at Bradford Barthel, where I work with Susan and Tim. I guess a little boring fact, definitely not as good as Susan's, but that I love snowboarding, but sadly that is not very ideal here in Southern California. Thank you. I will now pass it off.
Stephanie, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Roseville. I'm an attorney who works out of the Ontario office, although we are remote, as Tamina mentioned. I usually handle the Riverside, Pomona, and San Bernardino venues. And I have a little story about sharing a fun fact. I have twin cousins, and we went to elementary school together. And whenever we had to do one of these icebreakers where it's like, share a fun fact, my twin cousins would always just say, I'm a twin. And I thought, oh, that's so easy for them. And I could never come up with something for myself. So I started saying, I'm a twin. And I'm not a twin. So that's my fun fact about fun facts.
I love it. Okay, Lauren.
Hi, my name is Lauren Coleman. I am in our Concord office, and I've handled cases in almost all of the Northern California workers' compensation boards. I'm relatively new to Bradford and Barthel. I started in around September 2021, but I have been doing comp now for over 5 years. And my fun fact is that I am still going strong on my New Year's resolution to run more. And I set a personal record for a mile yesterday. So that's exciting.
Well done. Yay. Well done.
That's awesome. Okay, Tim, the man of the hour.
That's me. Hi, I'm Tim Mousock. Been in the rating department with Bradford Barthel since July of 2008, and that's what I do. I do ratings. I'm not an attorney, got a claims background, but ratings is what I do. Permanent disability evaluations, and kind of worked my way to do commutations every now and again. My fun fact is, when I went to school, we didn't have handheld calculators. we had slide rules. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen one before, but here's a slide rule. That's how we did our math back in my day. So thank you all for joining us, and I really appreciate the feedback we're getting on the questions, and I hope you ask questions through this. You can reach us afterwards. We'd be happy to ask any questions, but we're going to talk about commutations today. And Tammy, if you would.
Yes. Okay. We're going to start with a couple of poll questions. You should see the first one on your screen now. And it is, how many awards have you paid in the last 6 months? Well, it's supposed to say months, but I have a typo there. It says month. Sorry about that. How many awards have you paid in the last 6 months? So you have 4 options: none, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or 6 or more. I'm going to run through these kind of quickly, so don't worry if you don't get the chance to put in your answer, but most of you have already entered, so I'm going to go ahead and close this and share the results. Tim, it looks like 46% said 6 or more.
We've got some experienced folks here. Thanks for responding to that. That helps us.
And then final one for now. How many life pension claims have you managed in the last 6 months? Same options as far as your answers go: none, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or 6 or more. How many life pension claims have you managed in the last 6 months? And you guys clearly know how to use the polls. You must have been on here with us before because you are fast. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close this one in just about 2 seconds. And
we've got some with experience. Life pension claims and commutations seem to go hand in hand, but I really want to thank you. 80% of you responded there. That's terrific. That really is helpful to us. So I appreciate that. So with that, here we go. We're going to talk about awards. How do you got an award? What do I do? You got to pay it. Commutations usually fit in there. Anytime there's an attorney, a commutation is going to fit in there with calculating benefits for an award. So we're going to talk about how to calculate benefits due to the injured worker. You got to pay permanent partial disability that's accrued. You got to calculate what you're going to pay for the future, and you got to consider any reductions through commutations typically. And those are most frequently attorney fees, but there may be other credits that need to be commuted from future benefits. And then you've got to calculate what you got to do, your schedule and your benefits going forward. So first, going to talk about what commutations are. They're addressed in the labor code. It's paying benefits in advance. That's really all it is. A commutation helps you calculate how to pay benefits in advance and what interest return and what effect on future benefits that gives you. By law, we get 3% per year interest credit on any benefits paid in advance. We use a DEU commutation template for that. The DEU uses that same DEU commutation template, and that interest credit is built in. So we're going to talk about how to read one, and then the second half of the session today, we're going to talk about how to fill one out. So let's see, commutations. There's a worksheet. There's a template for it. I'm going to bring that up here real quick. I hope it's going to be quick, but a computation template from the DEU. It's workbook, and it's got across the bottom, it's got the different methods of commutation. Commutation A, B, and C, all 3 apply to permanent partial disability. The other ones apply to lifetime benefits and have life expectancies built in. But for permanent partial disability, there's a fixed end date. There's a fixed number of weeks, and so there's a fixed end date. So one of these 3 is what you're going to use, and is what is used for permanent partial disability. There's commutation of all remaining PD. The DEU uses this to calculate present value when they're calculating attorney fees. For a larger valued case, they may use this to get present value, and then 15% of present value is the current standard for what attorney fees are. You might do commutation of PD off the far end, so you're paying those attorney fees or whatever other credit, you're taking it off the far end of that permanent disability award. And off the far end, as it suggests, means you're shrinking that far end. You're making it that far end come closer. Commutation by uniform reduction, that calculates a specific reduction from the future benefits. And with that reduction, you're getting credit for the attorney fees or whatever you're paying in advance. And the interest credit is also can be calculated from that. For all three of these, all the permanent partial disability, the fixed end date, there's one table, table 1, was on the panel there that you had. And table 1 does the permanent partial disability. That's what table 1 looks like right there. It's number of weeks down the left-hand column, right to the right is the present value, and then there's multiple columns per page, and there's a couple of different pages worth. So that's what the table 1 is used for, commutations of permanent partial disability, not lifetime benefits, fixed end date. So let's look at an award. I look at an example award. You got a findings and award. What do? You got to pay. You might get unexpected findings post-trial. In particular, where that might come up most frequently is on a perm total case. We don't very often expect a perm total finding, 100% PD. So that may be something we don't know for sure until trial. So that really causes a lot of different things. What we're going to focus on today is permanent partial disability and how to read those awards and how to make those payments. We're not going to look at the bigger ones and the more complex ones. Those are things we can help you with if you want to send something, questions and whatnot afterward. But today we're going to focus on the permanent partial awards and how to read those. So an example, we're doing an award example. Say it's a 2000, that's not right, but 2022 is not the correct date of injury. The date of injury is 2020. I'm sorry for that. We're going to look at the 2015-2022. That's actually the date of the award, what we're going to use for this example. We have to look at temporary total disability. Do we owe any more? We look at permanent disability. 28% PD was awarded. It's 118.75 weeks at $290 a week. So it's $34,437.50. So the award's going to tell you 28% PD at $290 a week or less, if that's what applies. And the total permanent disability was $34,437. The award will also tell you the PD start date, and that's a real important piece of information in that award. So hopefully prior to submitting a stipulation or prior to trial, we've come to some agreement on what that PD start date is. That PD start date should be MMI date or end of TTD, whichever comes first is when PD starts to accrue. You may not be paying it right away if that person's returned to that job, but it's still accruing on that PD start date. So that's from the award. You got to look at your award. It's got to have it. It will have it. Hopefully we've agreed on it prior to it being submitted. So what this tells us is that the PD beginning 6/12/2020, and if we calculate the 118.75 weeks, it's not usually in the award, but we can do that calculation separately. It'll run through approximately September of 2022. The award will also tell us about attorney fees. What is the fee? And typically you need agreement on that. Usually, if you don't, then you've got an award. But typically, if you go to the DEU or you work it out in advance, you know what the attorney fees are. It's 15% of the benefit. Typically, that's standard. It's not a given, but that's standard. If it's a larger permanent disability award and the DEU does the calculation, they're going to calculate present value and take 15% of present value rather than 15% of the full value. And the present value just means it's reduced interest, assuming that the award is paid in full today. How much interest are you getting? How much is it reduced? So here's what the award looks like. It tells us the injured worker, a lot of identification in the first few pages of the award, of the findings. And then it tells you about temporary disability. On this case, we're going to assume that we've agreed on temporary disability, it was paid properly, and it was paid in full. There's no issue. And it looks like we might have a question coming in.
Sure, we have a question from Patricia, which is, would you commute applicant attorney fees on a case where we didn't pay any PD? Maybe the injured worker continued to work and all PD is due at the time of award.
If you haven't paid in any, if you've accrued it, you really have two choices. I think everybody's got to agree on which choice you're going to take. But if there's enough, you can take some of that attorney fees out of the accrued amount rather than paying the lump sum accrued if you haven't been paying it. And there are sometimes that happens. Most of the time, if you've been paying PD, there isn't enough accrued to take attorney fees, so you're going to commute that from future benefits. But that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
So this award goes ahead and tells us about permanent disability, tells us the amount of the attorney fees, and it tells us that they're to be commuted and how. And this particular one, commuted from the far end of the award. What does that mean? Well, we're going to look at it. The award will talk about liens. It'll talk about any other stipulations. Are there any other credits? Most of the time, we're looking at attorney fees. That's all that we're commuting. But if there's an overpayment of TTD, it's possible you get a commutation of that overpayment from the far end or by uniform reduction. So you may get some interest credit for that. It'll go on and on and on. Something that often gets written into stipulations, which seems like a real good idea to me, is that penalties and interests are already addressed in the stipulation or the award. Often, penalties and interests are waived if you pay it within 30 days of receipt of the award. The C&R template includes that in there. So it's a good idea to get that in there. Then you're not worrying about a day or two. What day do I got to pay it? You got 30 days, you get it paid, and everybody's comfortable with what the result is. So on this one, I'm going to go back to it. We're looking at permanent disability goes to the injured worker less the attorney fees to be commuted from the far end. So what does that mean? We got to first look, what do we owe? We owe 28% PD beginning June 12th of 2020 and through the date of the award or so, less attorney fees. So here's what we do. Here's what that 118 weeks would be if there was no commutation, if there were no attorney fees. We'd be paying $290 a week from June 12th, 2020 through 9/22/2022. That last day is not going to be a full day because they're odd dollar amounts and odd numbers of weeks. So it's not going to be a full day, but through approximately 9/22 of 2022. So we look at a commutation off the far end. So if we've gone to the DEU, or if we do it ourselves, we have a commutation of PD off the far end. It's commutation B, commutation worksheet B. So here's what the top of it would look like. Injured worker's name, the WCAB number, and the date. So this is identification. Then the data in here, these gray areas, it's important that you got accuracy or at least agreed upon information in here. The date of injury, we got a PD start date, June 12th of 2020. The date of commutation, that's the date you're actually calculating the benefits, and you want that date of commutation to be close to, if not the same day that you're making that payment, paying the attorney fees. You want it to be pretty close. The DEU typically will do a few days out or a couple weeks out or whatever they're asked to do by the judge, thinking that you're not going to do it the day that they do their calculation. So there's maybe a few days out. That's where that 30 days interest and penalty is waived, comes in handy. So you don't necessarily need to worry about having the exact date, but be as close as you can to be accurate on that. The PD rating was 28%. The number of weeks got to be accurate. The PD weekly rate got to be accurate. And the amount to commute, that's the attorney fees we're doing in this particular case. And here's what the body of that one commutation sheet looks like. What we need to fill out, or what the DEU fills out, is the area in gray. So here we see what the section 2, weeks, 31, and right below it is 30, and 2A and 2B tell us where those came from. They're filled in automatically, but this tells us where that came from. It came from 1F, 30.8929, and it took the whole number immediately above that and the whole number immediately below that. So that 38.8929 is between 31 and 30. With that number, you go to the table 1 and you look those up, 31 and 30, and you take the associated present value numbers. And those are put in here. So that's the part that you need to fill out. And it works its way down to here, the next gray area, section 6, and it's taking, you have to fill in the numbers just above 5C and just below. 5C is 12.7940, so we're putting in 13 and 12, back to table 1 to get the associated PV, and that's what you do on the commutation worksheet. The second part of it keeps working through. I'm sorry, it looks different than the other one. This is the bottom half of that same commutation template, commutation from the far end. And then we're going to look and see what data that told us. That commutation worksheet gives us data that we need for paying this award. 1C, well, number one, it tells us that data, it's calculating PD weeks accrued from the PD start date through and including the date of commutation. And in this case, that weeks elapsed 87.8571. So that's the number of weeks of PD accrued. You multiply that by 290, and that's what's the PD that's accrued that's payable to the injured worker. Whatever you've paid in it already is subtracted from that, but the total is going to be the 87.8571 times 290 a week is going to be what's accrued. And section 8 gives us other important information. 8B tells us how many weeks to continue paying after that date of commutation. And 8C tells you how much has been eliminated. The two of them add up to the 30, which is what has not yet accrued from section 1. So there's data that we need. So we can do the calculations, what we owe the injured worker. We owe the injured worker $290 a week, starting 6/2/20. I selected 2/16/22, the day after the award, thinking we're going to get that check out pretty quick. 87.8571 weeks at $290 a week, 25,000 plus has accrued of permanent disability benefits. So that injured worker through 2/16/22 is owed 25,000 plus in permanent disability. You get credit for whatever you've already paid for permanent disability, but the total due is that 25,478, and that's how we came up with that. This weeks that have accrued from the commutation worksheet, and $290 a week is the rate. So subtract anything previously paid, that check goes to the injured worker. To the attorney, $51.65.63. That goes at the time of the award. The attorney's getting that fee now. It's not being deferred unless there's something special written into that award or that finding. It's not being taken out over time. Sometimes people think that it is taken out over time. It's not. It's paid lump sum now, and the credit for it is taken out over time. And so this is what needs to go out now. You've got your award. This is what you're paying. $51.65.63 to the attorney, and $25,478.56 to the injured worker. You get credit for previously paid amounts for the injured worker. This is not a new money. This is total. what's due now. And TD's all adequately compensated in this scenario that we're using. So this is what's paid. We're getting credit for that attorney fees by the commutation of PD off the far end. Something you may have noticed on this one is that there was a lot accrued and not a lot left, and that's going to make some difference here. So we're going to look at what do we do going forward. We've paid all this. This is all due as of February 16th. What about going forward? Well, we're taking it off the far end. So for benefits starting 2/17/2022, we're going to pay $290 a week. But that commutation from the far end shortens how long we're going to pay it. As the commutation worksheet told us, it's reduced 18 weeks from the far end. Kenny, I think we've got another question.
Yeah, just a good clarification of what's the difference between from the far end and off the far end?
Nothing. Nothing. It's called off the far end on the commutation worksheet, but you'll see people call it from the far end. You'll see a number of people, including judges, call it from the side. Is actually a uniform reduction, but from the far end is and off the far end is the same thing. From the far end and off the far end is the same thing. Does that answer that? Okay.
Someone was wondering about the sample. It didn't have number 8 on the sample.
It did not have number 8 on the sample. Which sample was that?
I believe
the attachment.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go through the second half here, so maybe that'll help. We'll do that. So we'll get to that one in a little bit. Okay. Thank you.
The one with the 28% PD, we got a clarification.
Okay. We'll look at that a little bit later, and if that's missing something, I'll get another copy out. But we're going to walk through those two in a little bit. But thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Okay, so from section 8 of this one, it tells us the number of weeks remaining. So that's really the easiest way to figure it out. So you got 12.8482 weeks beginning February 17th at $290 a week. We've taken it off the far end. So it's still $290 a week, but we're only going to pay another 12.8482, which means PD now is going to end May 17th, 2022. Previously, it was September 22nd, 2022. So those months of benefits are gone by the attorney fees and the interest credit that you're getting. So you need to keep that in mind. If you're doing off the far end, the benefits stop sooner. And that's how you calculate it. From the commutation worksheet, it's telling you how much left, how many weeks left, and how many weeks eliminated, and it's still $290 a week going forward. Now that example, again, we had quite a bit had accrued before the award. So there wasn't a whole lot left from which to take benefits, so it took a significant amount of weeks off the end. It's ending pretty soon. So in summary, for that one, commutation 1, we did PD off the far end with a date of commutation of 2/16/22. There was 18 weeks eliminated off the far end. And so you can calculate interest credit using the data in the commutation worksheet. There isn't, unfortunately, a line that says, here's your interest credit, but you can do the calculation. The calculation is you take what the total amount of PD was, less the accrued you're paying, less the attorney fees, less the still due amount, and the still due amount is the 12 point whatever weeks it was, times $290 a week. And the difference is $67.33. So it's not a huge interest savings in this case because most of it's already been paid. But if you don't reduce the end date, if you don't cut that back, you've lost any savings and you've overpaid. So you got to pay attention. If you're doing off the far end, you got to recalculate the end date and make sure you're stopping that in time in conjunction with what your commutation did, so that you're getting credit for that attorney fees and the little bit of interest that you're going to get. So that is the example that I've got. Part 2, we're going to go through actual commutation, that 28%. I'd rather you not look at that. We're going to look at a blank one and kind of work our way through that. We're going to select the commutation type, the table, and we want to make sure we get accurate data. But before we go, I've got a couple more questions that poll questions that Tammy's going to give to us that'll help me understand where I'm at. Are you still there, Tammy?
I am here.
Thank you.
And I am popping that up on the screen right now. You should already see it. How many commutation worksheets have you had to read through in the last 6 months? None, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or 6 or more. So, and I'm going to give that a few more seconds because you guys are really fast. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that out, Tim, and share the results here.
Okay. Again, I think 75% voted. Thank you. I really appreciate participation. It really helps me understand where I'm going today and in the future with trainings. Quite a few have not read through a commutation worksheet before. Some have read through a few. So we got a good spread of experience. Thank you.
Okay, and the final question, how many commutation worksheets have you personally completed in the last 6 months? And while you're answering that question, I just wanted to first apologize to some of you who are having trouble getting onto the webinar today, especially our friends over at Sedgwick. If you are, I'm going to give you a little tip that I'm hoping will help you in the future. If you are using Internet Explorer as your browser, it is not supported with GoToWebinar, and you will not be able to register or attend our webinars on the webinar portion. I mean, you can call in like I know you're doing now, but you won't be able to get on the actual webinar or register if you're using the Internet Explorer browser. So you have to use Chrome or one of the other supported browsers. If you have any more questions about that, please shoot me an email and I'm happy to discuss it with you. Okay, Tim, I'm going to close this one out.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so part 2 of what we're doing today is we're going to actually look at commutations, and we're going to walk through and complete a commutation. And the purpose for that is I think it's a lot easier to kind of understand if you see it. Me talking doesn't necessarily help as much as seeing it. So we're going to complete a commutation. We're going to use, excuse me, we're going to use the same information that we use for that first one. We're going to use it's a 2018 date of injury. 28% PD is what we're going to use for this award. The same PD start date of 6/12/2020 and the same amount of attorney fees, but we're going to do a different commutation. We're going to do a commutation by uniform reduction. So the first thing we need to do is select the commutation type. I'm bringing up this is the DEU workbook, and across the bottom, as you click on these, it'll tell you what commutation it is. So A is commutation of all remaining PD, commutation of PD off the far end, which is what we just went through, and C is commutation of PD by uniform reduction of payment. So these are the only 3 options for permanent partial disability. It's those 3. So we are going to do by uniform reduction is what we're going to walk through on this. So this is the information we would want to have in here. So on this, we would put in the data that we need for the commutation. in this example, again, it's the same data. I think it's a great idea. I see that pretty regularly now, where you actually put the rating string that's involved in the award. I think that's a great idea, particularly with respect to apportionment. If it's in there like that, there's absolutely no doubt what the subtraction method under Labor Code 4664 should be. If the new one is under AMA guides as well. So I think that's just terrific. And I see a number of awards and stipulations where if it's multiple body parts, each string is put in there with the apportionment if applicable. And I think that's a terrific idea. It really helps when you're looking to apply apportionment. Okay, I'm going to go to, here's one that we did. The uniform reduction is what we're going to do. So it looks like this, the same data. We've got date of injury, we've got PD start date, date of commutation, PD rating, number of weeks, and the weekly rate. So I hope you're all seeing that. This is all the same data that was on the PD off the commutation off the far end. It gives us actually the weeks elapsed. It turns out it's the same. We got the same dates. So it's 87.857 weeks, 71 weeks have elapsed since the PD start date. It gives us the same weeks here, 31 and 30, which is looking at what's remaining in terms of permanent disability. And we go to the PV table. And it tells us each commutation worksheet will tell you at the bottom what table to use. There's 3 tables for commutations. Table 1 is used for permanent partial disability. If you're doing lifetime benefits, perm total, or life pension, then you need either table 2 or table 3. Table 2 is for male. Table 3 is for female. There's slightly different life expectancies, and those tables include life expectancies built in. So we're not going to look at them today, but I just want to make you aware of that. If you're doing permanent partial disability, table 1 is what you need, and it tells you on the commutation worksheet which table. So the 31 weeks and the 30 is filled out from 1F. It automatically fills that out. And we go to table 1, we find 31 and 30, and we take those PV numbers and we put those in that section, 2A, 2B. It keeps working its way down, and for commutation by uniform reduction, there's only one. That's all you do. That's the only data you need to put in there. The gray area is all you need to fill out, and that's it. And it does the rest of the calculations. What it does, the piece that we really need to focus on is section 4. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Well, section 1 and section 4. Section 1 gives us the data we need to know what's accrued. Section 4 tells us what we do about future benefits. And I'm going to close that up and see if I can get myself to the right spot here. So we completed this. We've got table 1. This is what table 3 looks like, just to give you an idea. I'm going to shrink that a little bit so you can see more of it, hopefully. Oh, nope, I can't shrink that one. Okay. So table 3 was for life expectancy for females, and it looks like I might have just taken that right out of there. Okay. Nope, there it is. So it's got across the top years before the commencement of life pension. So typically, if it's a life pension commutation, you haven't started it yet. It's not starting until PD is paid first, the underlying permanent partial disability, then life pension. So when the commutation's done, that hasn't started yet. It's going to start sometime in the future. And so it gives you commutation work dates. Unfortunately, I did not give you the whole piece there, but here we go. We're going to keep going. What this does: permanent disability by uniform reduction commutation. So we're going to go through the data that was on that worksheet. And again, this PD by uniform reduction. We got the data commutation, the amount to commute, and the PD start date. So as it turns out, we have the same amount of money due. The 31, the PV gives us that. And here's the actual uniform reduction amount. So the amount payable now, the attorney fees, $51.65.63, the same example we use, so it's the same amount in attorney fees. And the weeks elapsed through date of commutation, we use the same data, so it's the same number of weeks. You multiply it by 290, so 25,478 is what's accrued. You pay that amount, up to that amount, less whatever credits you have, whatever you've already paid. So you may be paying nothing. Maybe you've been paying current and there's nothing additional owed, but you're paying up through February 16th is what we calculated, and that's the total amount, including anything you may have paid for permanent partial disability. Here's the big difference. What do we do for the future? From section 4, it told us that 290 was the amount before reduction, the weekly PD rate, and the reduction is 168.78. So the rate after reduction, 290 minus the 168.78, 122.22 is the rate after uniform reduction, and that begins February 17th, 2022. The difference between this and off the far end is we reduce it, but we continue paying for the remainder of that benefit, the additional 30.8924 weeks. For the off the far end, we're paying $290 a week, but we're stopping 18 weeks sooner. That's where the difference comes in between the two. So here's how we work that out. The interest savings, we can do the calculation based on the data that's in there. Here's what's left. Here's what here's what's reduced, and here's what we paid. And so the difference, 48.47, is the interest credit. Again, not a lot. Most of the PD was paid before we got to the commutation. So those are the two that you're probably going to see the most. And I'm going to bring that up again. By commutation of PD off the far end and commutation of PD by uniform reduction of payments. If you've handled life pension cases and awards for life pension cases, you may have seen the DU does a commutation, does two different commutation methods just for reference. They do a commutation by uniform reduction. I'm going to call it uniform constant reduction. That reduction stays the same for as long as you pay that benefit. And then they also offer a commutation by uniform increasing reduction. And again, this is only going to be for life pension cases or perm total cases. And the difference is the reduction starts at a much lower rate, but it increases every year. So not only does COLA apply into the rate before reduction, there's an increase on the reduction. That increasing reduction is typically fixed. You need to make sure you read your commutation and your award on a life pension case to know which one you're getting. But it does differ. There's a uniform constant reduction. It's not called constant, but I'm calling it constant. And there's a uniform increasing reduction. Okay, so what if permanent disability is 70% or more? Some of you have seen some of those. A lot of you have not. If it is, you're going to get attorney fees calculated separately. The DU will do different calculations. They will do present value, 15% of present value. There'll be a calculation on permanent partial disability, and there'll be a calculation on projected life pension benefits, and that's where the life expectancy of that injured worker comes in. How long is that benefit going to be paid? And you'll get a combined award of attorney fees, so they can be paid together, but they're coming out of different slots. So if there's commutation, if there's attorney fees, you're going to get separate commutations. You're going to get a commutation from the permanent partial disability. Let's say it's 75% PD. You're going to get a commutation from that 75% PD, and you're going to get a commutation from the life pension. One thing to remember, what we looked at the two options, by uniform reduction and off the far end. If it's off the far end of PD, that stops early. Life pension benefits do not move up. So there's going to be a gap in benefits if you're paying PD off the far end. And I think we've got a question coming in.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Is on life pension claims, does the commutation take into consideration COLA increases?
Yes, it does. What the commutation worksheet includes, the DU can project. I have a copy of their projector, but the DU can project the annual percentage rate. Currently, they're projecting a 3% COLA. So yes, it's projecting that, a 3% annual COLA for once the benefit begins, for the life expectancy of that injured worker. And so the present value is taken of that, including that 3% COLA projection and 15% of that, rather than the full value projection. And that's part of the reason they're doing present value, is because if you do by full value, it shifts a lot more money from the injured worker to the attorney. And that should stay with the injured worker as much as possible.
And so some people are asking, when would you do uniform reduction versus from the far end?
I think you want to get agreement with the injured worker. If that's all you've got is permanent partial disability. Let me just back up. If it's a life pension case, I would recommend uniform reduction every time, because that injured worker to go for a period with no benefits, I think, is a hardship. And they should at least be made aware of it. Maybe the injured worker would decide that's okay, but I think I perceive that as a potential hardship. If it's a permanent partial disability, whatever the injured worker wants, really, do you want all the money? You want the money sooner, or you want to spread it a little bit spread out over time? That's really the choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So again, if you've got a life pension case, really make sure everybody's aware of how you're doing the commutation off that underlying PD, because Labor Code says life pension starts after the weeks, not after the money. So if you do off the PD off the far end, that shrinks the amount of time that person is going to get a benefit. And if it's a big PD award, there could be a year, 2 years of no benefits before life pension starts. So again, whatever the injured worker might want, but I think often they're not aware of the options, and they're not aware if it's off the far end that there's going to be a gap. Some may say, go ahead, give it to me now, but I think they should at least be made aware. In terms of the final award, paying an award, you can, with the commutation worksheet, calculate the amounts due now. The commutation worksheet, assuming you got the correct PD start date and you're put in a date of commutation, it's going to calculate how long, what period of time you owe benefits, and you can multiply it times that $290 a week or whatever it may be. Attorney fees go now. They're not spread out. They go now, unless you've got something unusual written in your stipulation or award. They go out now at the time of the award. And if you're doing a commutation, it's going to affect benefits after you make that initial award payment. So make that award payment and pay attention to what the difference is going to be. If it's off the far end, you're stopping sooner. Recalculate that end date. If it's by uniform reduction, you are reducing that benefit for the rest of that benefit, the rest of the period you pay it. And it starts the very next day after that commutation, assuming you get that commutation out, that attorney fee out promptly. So again, commutations, there's 3 specific to PPD. The rest are for lifetime benefits. Table 1 is used for PPD. Table 2 or Table 3 is for lifetime benefits, in perm total or life pension. None of them are titled perm total. They're called life pension, and they're kind of incorporating perm total in that. And if there are no more questions, I believe we've finished that. So we've gone through the commutation worksheets, and we specifically permanent partial disability, and we looked at doing both commutation off the far end and commutation by uniform reduction. But most importantly, that helps us calculate benefits due now and figure out what to do going forward.
Thank you, Tim. Kenny, do we have any other questions?
I see one from Jennifer that says, I see on some awards that attorney fees are awarded from PD, although they cover PD and life pensions. Do you see this often as well?
I don't. They're awarded from TD. I don't see that often.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that on a stipulated award, or are we looking at compromise and release? Because typically attorneys don't get attorney fees on temporary disability unless they played some part in getting those benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. Anything else?
No questions after that? Nope.
Jennifer said she wasn't talking about, I wasn't talking about TD, it's a stipulated award or an FNA.
okay, so I need the question again then. I forgot what that was in terms of
She said,
attorney fees.
Yeah, I see on some awards that attorney fees are awarded from PD, although they cover, sorry, I lost the question. They cover PD and life pension. Do you see this often as well?
Oh, they'll give you a total. Typically, yes, although they'll be calculated separately, they'll be added together and you'll be given the total of what the attorney fees. So all those attorney fees go now, but they're going to be calculated, they'll be commuted separately. The portion for permanent disability is going to be calculated separately and commuted separately. And the attorney fee for life pension is going to be calculated separately and commuted separately. It's all due now, and you can pay it in one check. I'm assuming your company allows you to do that. But yes, you're going to get a separate amount for each added together. That's the attorney fee. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Tim. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much for answering the poll questions and sending me the emails, about the browser issues and getting some of those issues worked out. We really appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mhm.